There's a serial killer on the loose and multiple disappearances that might be connected to a lake and strange hallucinations. Is it possible for the residents to feel safe? Can the police even help? Even something like the feeling of grief could put you at risk. And who's tampering with all these tapes? If you're wondering what I'm talking about, today we'll be exploring the Scarlet Lake Tapes found on the channel CreativeToad Productions. This series really makes you wonder what's real and what's not, and who's to blame. So if you're interested, sit back, relax, get a snack, and as always, my name is Rip Estrella. Let's explore. Scarlet Lake Syndrome, Analog Horror. We first open with a message sponsored by iVision asking if we've experienced the following: visions, unexplained sounds, and a feeling of dread in certain places. The message also shares a picture to provide us an example about what it's like when experiencing those symptoms. If you answer yes, then that means you likely have Scarlet Lake Syndrome. Lucky for you, iVision is the leading provider for the syndrome's treatment and diagnosis. But before we talk about treatments, the footage suddenly corrupts for a moment before switching away to an artist's interpretation of the condition and text explaining that it can affect anyone. You, me, or the police. That feels a little specific. We then learn that SLS tends to be the most common in grieving people, and the majority of cases are within the Scarlet Lake area. With that, we now move on to the treatments. When experiencing SLS, just remember fear. Focus, it might go away. Evaluate, was it something you ate? Act, leave the area. Report, to authorities, specifically. If that doesn't work, then do not believe. Never believe. The footage then starts to corrupt until text appears reading, sometimes visions are seen of those still alive. She's still alive. Keep looking. Would you do it if it was your own daughter? We then see an image of a girl and more text telling us to keep looking for her because she's not dead. But the video isn't talking to us, but an officer. And towards the end, we get a reminder to report to iVision if we experience any of these symptoms, and the video ends. Already, we can take away a few important key elements from this video alone. For starters, the grieving parents and the text appearing on the screen which seems adamant that she's alive. She, I'm assuming, is referring to a parent's child. My first assumption was that a parent was adamant towards the police in looking for their child. However, maybe it's not a parent actually. Maybe it's the officer who developed SLS and is now seeing visions to convince them to continue searching for missing people. These are just initial assumptions. In order to find out, let's continue. Hidden Danger Plot, Analog Horror. In this video, we're going to be learning about the hidden dangers of everyday life. It may seem safe in Scarlet Lake, however, the lake is the home to a species of deadly bacteria that causes hallucinations and death. Oh no. In order to actually be safe on Scarlet Lake is by doing the following. Feed them fresh meat. Huh? Well, that cut away quickly, and now we're getting interrupted by an announcement from the police. The police are just giving a heads up saying there's still no suspects for the disappearances in the Scarlet Lake area, and to call the number below if you have any information. We then cut away to text explaining that because of an all-time low in pollution, Dami, the bacteria, is more active in causing more hallucinatory mental illnesses due to SLS. Honestly, why are people bothering to go there? Anyways. There was a glitchy text at the bottom which reads, "It was not me." Huh? We then learn that the bacteria traces back to the 1500s and an explorer wrote about it in their journal. Let's read it. "The devil is in this cursed lake. The demons that rest inside will not stop their torment unless they taste blood. I have already had to kill my family dog. Maybe if they have a human corpse, they will be at peace?" Ha! You may be the next victim. What do you mean? Take that back. I'll fight you. After this, we then get told a true story about two people named Jimmy and Paula who swam in the lake every day, and what a surprise, the bacteria infected them. The two began to see things like dead bodies in the lake, and even bodies getting dumped into the lake. Maybe they even saw the killer? This resulted in them drowning in the lake, and they sank to the bottom. We then get told something interesting. A box was found under a tree which didn't belong to them. What's in the box? The photo then grew larger with text reading, "I would know," before the footage corrupts and we get shown a message from authorities. "You won't find me." Is that a bet? "I need to do this. You'll thank me. They deserved it." The video soon ends there, and honestly, all that I've been thinking about throughout the whole thing was the text, "Feed them fresh meat." Like what? I'm also thinking about that explorer's diary too. Maybe there's parasites in the lake, and they're entering people to use them as their hosts in order to feed off of them. Ooh! In order to find out, let's continue. iVision, Company Profit, Analog Horror. It opens with a sponsored message from iVision, specifically explaining what it is. Eye Vision isn't just an eye care company. They offer psychoanalysis, medical treatment, and more. Their story is that the founder, Richard Kay, started an eye care facility, but due to his daughter struggling with mental illness, he decided to open a psychological ward. We then get to learn about the future of Eye Vision, and it's going to soon release its first program in CD-ROM format. This will be a sponsored program that will be arriving to the public channels, and they hope to see support from the viewers who tune in. This is nice, but suddenly we get interrupted with an update from the police, specifically referring to the disappearances that we've learned about prior. Jimmy and Paula were found dead, and their causes of death was beheading. Ugh. Then there's the Smith family, who were found alive, Jill, who was found dead from drowning, and Rebecca Kay, who is the founder of Eye Vision's daughter. Her date of death was 9/3/84, and the cause was neglect. Yikes. We also see text in the bottom that reads, "There still was a chance. Someone will pay." This is when the video ends and gives us the time to speculate. I don't know about you, but this got me thinking about the first video. Specifically the quote, "She's still alive. Keep looking." Now maybe Richard, the founder of Eye Vision, is hung up over losing his daughter, and because he was so neglectful, maybe he's filled with guilt and that's driving his motivation into wanting to desperately find her. Then again, if he actually is neglectful, I doubt that he actually cares. The person who probably is hung up over looking for Rachel is likely an officer, and maybe this officer developed SLS, which is motivating them to keep looking. Working as an officer is tough, especially when you're looking into multiple disappearance cases and murders, so maybe they just ended up developing SLS, and now they believe all the victims are still out there due to their hallucinations and strange visions and stuff like that. Let's keep this in the back of our minds and continue. Eye Vision Mental Diagnosis Trailer. This is basically a video centering around the program that was mentioned before, and it's free for all the workers and patients from Eye Vision. This is a very quick and easy video, so let's just move on to the next one, and no need to overthink it. Wait! Nope, there's a game in the description. It's a lot of questions, but an interesting piece of text reads, "There are things about me that people do not know. I see images in my dreams. People can see ghosts of people who are dead. People can see ghosts of people who are still alive. Modern technology is corrupting our society. Child neglect is worse than murder." And at the end of the game, I was told I have SLS and need to report to Eye Vision, then everything shuts down. Honestly, whoever's text was that clearly has SLS too. Seeing ghosts of dead people? Sure. Seeing ghosts of people who are still alive? Huh? As for the neglect comment, maybe this person has a grudge against the founder of Eye Vision, Richard. You know, because he neglected his daughter. Interesting thought. Let's continue. The Talk. Analog horror. We're not talking about the birds or the bees, I swear. This is a presentation with Jane M, and it's connected to Eye Vision. Not only that, but we'll be getting all our questions answered live. Just call the number. After this, we then get welcomed to the first topic, which was about pollution in the lake. Has the pollution there stopped? Luckily, dumping of waste has been moved to a more safe and secure location, but we're not sure where. We can only assume it's far away from Scarlet Lake. As for the long-term effects of the pollution stopping, it's believed that the lake can become inhabitable for fishes again, and it could revolutionize the local economy if it leads to a fishing boom. After answering that question, it was time for a break, and brought to us by the Scarlet Lake News, we'll be shown something. This is when a photo of Jimmy and Paula appeared along with text reading, "Do you know them?" If we do, please share stories and even donate to go help solve the case. This announcement seems to be in remembrance of the two. And at the end of that segment, we return back to the scheduled program. However, unexpectedly, the audio is gone, but we can still read the text. The question asked is, can bad things come from the lake not being polluted? This obviously confuses Jane because what could possibly go wrong with the lake if it's not polluted? The next question asked is, shouldn't some things stay dead? Which still confused Jane, and at some point they realized there were still technical difficulties, but are still taking questions. Also, a guest gets introduced, which is Dr. Matthews Haller, the fifth. He's been researching the disappearances and murders in the area and made a psychological profile of the Scarlet Lake killer. According to Matthew, he believes the killer is suffering from post-traumatic spiritual homicidal monomania, or PTSHM, meaning there must have been a traumatic event in the past which caused the murders. A phone call soon comes in, but rather than a question, it was a statement saying, "You are wrong." Jane didn't understand what the caller meant by this and asked for the doctor's input, but we were soon met with silence, and suddenly we cut to another break, and for this break, it's an ad. An ad revolving around Scarlet Lake PD, and they claim that whenever you look outside, you'll see this. Seems normal. They also claim that we won't see this. This is when we see a bunch of skulls. It's a strange way for them to say, hey, we're going to keep the peace, but alright, whatever floats your boat. The ad stops there, and we return back to the calls. But things become more strange. We then get greeted by someone who refers to themselves as our host, and another thing noticed on the screen is apparently there's no connection to the station. So whoever's greeting us isn't one of the planned guests. We then get a call asking, "Who are you?" The response was, they were talking about me. I'm assuming the killer of Scarlet Lake, since that was the last person discussed. Creepy. The next question asked was, "Why are you doing this?" And the response was, "Watch." Suddenly the audio glitched and corrupts, and we see a whole lot of numbers on the screen before the video ends. Now what's the meaning behind those numbers? Since I was lazy, I looked at the comment section, and apparently this is what it translates to. I didn't need to find them. They all trusted me. I didn't need to look for them. I knew where they were. Spooky. Now it's time for us to suspect who the killer is. According to the code, it has to be someone trusted and knowledgeable about people's location. My first assumption is a police officer because the police are relatively trusted, and looking back on the first video, it did mention the police, specifically that the police can also get SLS. Clearly the police are a lot more important to the story than just people trying to find dead bodies, and if a police officer is the killer, then of course they would know their locations. The killer always remembers where they killed someone, you know? However, if it's not the police, then I got no other ideas at the moment. Let's just continue before I confuse myself more. Seeing visions differently. Analog horror, plus more. We get welcomed to Seeing Visions Differently, and today's subject is about subliminal messages. What are subliminal messages? It's the act of hiding a message in a piece of media that cannot be noticed consciously but affects the unconscious mind. We then go on to see for ourselves if it works, and in order to do that, we are going to see two videos, one with a hidden message and the other without. It's up to us to guess which is which. What a fun game! For video 1, we see a road at night. At the end of the video, we then get asked if anything was wrong and if we feel uneasy. Personally, I developed a lot of fears revolving around a dark road, so yeah, I would say I feel unsettled. Now the second video. It's still dark, but rather than a road, we see trees and a moon. Not only that, but sometimes there's text flashing on the screen. The text reads as so: "Look around you, behind you, you know who, you know who." We also get shown a YouTube link, which in all honesty was hard to see. So I looked at the comment section, found Morse code from the creator, translated that, then had to open a shift cipher decoder to translate what was translated, and that eventually got me to a link to a channel. Gosh! I'll get to that later. For the remainder of this video, we get asked again if we felt uneasy and if there was something wrong, which was repeated a few times until everything glitched and turned dark before proceeding on to static. And briefly flashing on the screen, we see someone peeking, then text in front of a purple screen that reads, "Have conventional religion failed you?" If the answer is yes, then a solution will be presented to us. The New Age Fellowship. If you're interested, the next meeting will be at Scarlet Lake. Don't tell me there's going to be a cult. And this is where the video ends. Before I continue on to the remainder of the series, I feel like it's important to talk about the channel that this video directed us to. But I'm not going to give them their own segments and just speed run through all the videos. In the first video, it was a discussion between Matthews and another person, specifically his claims about the killer having PTSHM. According to the person Matthew is talking to, it sounds like something iVision would come up with, to which Matthew agrees. The person then asked Matthew how he profiled the killer, and Matthew was silent for a moment before mentioning the state of the victims, and later he's going to look into the lake and the bacteria. Speaking of which, the next video is talking about the bacteria. Warden Chemicals has a goal to discover the properties of A. domini, and they'll be doing experiments. In these experiments, it revolves putting subjects in separate rooms, one with the lake water and one without. The subject then will be asked to record all their thoughts. For the control subject, they seem to be questioning why they're there and sitting in a room for hours. The situation is a little frustrating, but as long as they're getting paid, it might be worth it. As for subject 2, who's going through the experiment with the lake water, they're excited to get paid and plan to get some books with the money, but suddenly, after having that thought, they get distracted by something in the corner. This is when they start to panic, saying that they're going to die, everyone's going to die, and begging for help. Yikes. The conclusion of this experiment is that exposure is fatal. Yikes again! Then there's the next video, which is brought to us by iVision. Not only that, but according to the playlist, it contains false information that was removed from the police files due to authenticity. Why can't I say that word?
Authenticity.
Anyways, I still watched it regardless of it being false or not, and it starts off with some music before switching to text asking us to play a game. Then the text asks where this is, which I'm assuming is referring to the photo, and the text also asked if we checked the news. The text then goes on to explain that they walked alone together, her and I. The text also mentioned that the moon shined brightly, and that it would be the last night she saw. A question also appears which reads, "Why did you have to take her away from me?" I believe they're referring to Rebecca Kay, iVision's founder's daughter, and we see her photo before the video ends. These are all the videos found on that channel, and honestly, I really like the video about the experiments done with the lake water. It really shows how crazy someone can get when exposed to that water for just a short amount of time. Also, maybe whatever was done to Rebecca was done accidentally or on impulse? Maybe Rebecca and this person were just walking along the lake and suddenly the person was hit with hallucinations and craziness and it drove them to murder her. That sounds fun, but maybe it could just be a murderer who just likes to murder. Also, that statement that said, "Why did you have to take her away from me?" Was that the father saying this? If Richard is presumably neglectful, why would he care so much? Huh. In order to find out, let's continue on with the series. Stay safe. Analog horror. We first open with a warning telling us this tape is only distributed in Scarlet Lake school systems and selling it is prohibited. With that, we then see a production by TV Ed which features Sheriff Matthews, and Matthew goes on to explain he's the head of the police department in the Scarlet Lake City. He ensures safety in the city but is aware that he cannot protect everyone, so to keep the kids protected, this film will teach them how to keep themselves safe. Just remember the two words, stay and safe. We also get shown scenarios to help us understand each step of safe. S for sane, be calm and quiet to avoid drawing in the wrong attention. A for aware, be aware of weapons, strange things, and for some reason your parents. One specific thing to be aware of is if a location is safe or not. The lake clearly isn't. F for fight or flight. If there's a clear way out, you can run. If the threat doesn't have a weapon or if there's no hope for escape, you can fight. A thief, you should run. A group of preschoolers, you could fight them. I mean, just shove past them. You don't gotta knock a kid out. What? And finally, E for educated, which is basically a review of everything learned. Once you're safe, you then get instructed to call the sheriff, but unexpectedly text appears which reads, "The sheriff isn't listening. The sheriff can't hear you. The sheriff can't save you." Also flashing on the screen was more text. "I couldn't save them. There are no monsters. Don't end up like them. Stay safe. I will keep you safe." We then conclude with glitches and a goodbye to the lesson. So, it's confirmed that there isn't a monster pulling the strings. No lake monster or creepy crawlies, but a human serial killer and a whole lot of mental illness. And with that ending, I'm now more leaning towards believing the officer is responsible for all the deaths. Either it be Matthew, the sheriff, or another officer. We'll see. Charity Drive, Analog Horror. The Talk, Not the Birds and the Bees, presents us with the first annual Jimmy T Memorial Drive. For this drive, we were given a number to donate, and as it got started, we learned this program is a special episode from The Talk, as mentioned prior. Jimmy T Memorial Funds is sponsoring The Talk, and they hope to raise $20,000. Speaking of which, they got their first donation from iVision and received $5,000. The next donation was then $30, and according to the announcers, gifts will be given to the people donating. The gifts were then shown and more donations started coming in. And if you donate $1,500 or over, you can have a message broadcast. iVision's message is, iVision's a force of good in your community. It also goes on to mention sponsoring programs like TV Ed, which made that safety video for kids, and that iVision is a vital part of the community, who cares, blah blah blah. More money comes in, and once $10,000 is achieved, the charity drive will transition to a charity auction. We then get a short break and a bit of static until items soon popped up for bidding to begin. But as you can probably guess, some strange items started to appear. This one, which is titled Interview Transcripts. The photo is also familiar since it's a photo of Jimmy and Paula T. This item was sold to SLC Police Department. Eventually, due to signal interference, the auction had to stop in order to be fixed. However, the broadcast was tampered with again, and the next item was sold to Anonymous too. A noticeable item was Jill's case file, which the static was soon changed from active to burned. Same goes for Jimmy's drawing as for Paula T's case file. It was sold to SLCA, but suddenly the donation disappeared, which only leaves Anonymous too. This feels rigged. Jimmy's case file was also sold and burned, the Smiths family's case file too, and lastly there's Rebecca K's case file. iVision throws in $10,000 into the auction because, obviously, but suddenly an error appears and everything stopped. This is when the video ends, and there's one more video on the playlist which is a remastered version of the first video, and that video shows more imagery of the police, more knowledge on the syndrome, such as an intense version of the syndrome involving people believing they received messages from the greater beyond, and more vivid hallucinations. But for the sake of not making this video too long, let's just go to the conclusion. Oh, but real quick, the statuses of all the case files being burned, I'm telling you, someone in the police department went into like the freaking evidence closet, and they're probably burning all the stuff. Anyways, now let's go to the conclusion. Conclusion. I'm not confident with my theories here, but I'll try my best. Before I start guessing who the serial killer is, let's talk about the noticeable connections between the other side, a greater being, religion, etc. specifically that diary belonging to an explorer that mentions the lake holding devils, and also another video that talks about the New Age Fellowship, which apparently will meet up in Scarlet Lake. Could this lake be causing an increase of SLS and making people hallucinate about a greater being who is telling them to do destructive things? Maybe. Then again, believing that a group of people are sharing a hallucination might be too much, but anything is possible when it comes to analog horror. I'm not the most confident about those thoughts, however, I am confident about knowing that the lake is obviously important, no duh. And maybe the serial killer might have SL syndrome? Potentially. Maybe the serial killer dislikes Richard, the founder of iVision, for neglecting his daughter, so the killer thought, hey, it would be fine to kill her because that's their sick form of, mercy for the girl and punishing the father. Not only that, but maybe their hallucinations of the other side is pushing them into believing that, they're righteous in their actions, or convincing them who to kill. As for who could be the serial killer, I still believe it has to be an officer. With all the tampering going down with each of these tapes, it has to be someone well-connected. Not only that, but that one code which said, I don't need to look for them, I know where they were. This might be an officer who's on a search team for the people who disappeared, and the statement is showing us that they don't have to search for them because they already know where they left them. So the serial killer has to be an officer, but maybe there's also another officer in play who I believe also has SLS, but rather than committing murders, they're just becoming more obsessed with finding the victims? Maybe Matthew. Listen, this is where I'm a little confused. I can't tell if Matthews is a good person or a bad person despite that safety video. Because of this, for a moment I thought there was a case similar to Jekyll and Hyde, where Matthew has a serial killer dark side and a justice for the people light side. Maybe SLS messed up his mind so much that he doesn't even realize that he's the killer, and he keeps seeing visions of victims and tricking himself into believing he's able to rescue them? And Matthew is the only officer we know by name, at least I think. So, unless I'm missing something. Regardless, all the deaths are caused from a person, a human, not a monster, and this greater being and connections to religion are all being influenced due to hallucinations. Also, maybe the serial killer believes they're feeding the lake by tossing in dead bodies? I'm only saying this because of that one hidden message that said, feed them fresh meat. As for iVision, they seem really interested in the SLS cases. Could it be because they're to blame for the pollution caused in the lake? And, they're trying to eliminate the people exposed to it? Maybe. Honestly, shady business is always going to be shady. I don't even know who's the good guy in this story. It could be because I'm indecisive and I keep switching theory to theory, but this is what I'm going to stick with for now. An officer is likely the killer, hallucinations is causing people to believe that they're getting messages from the great beyond, some weird cult, people dying, the lake being weird, and yeah. Editor Reap here. I just want to add another theory before I finish this video, sorry. Let's return back to the topic about that cult. What if the cult is brainwashing people and they're using the lake to better brainwash someone, and to either making them go insane or into joining them? This cult is still worshipping something, as I guessed, and whatever they're worshipping likes bloodshed and murder. Maybe they like taking people's eyes because there's a lot of eye imagery. That's all I gotta say, I'm sorry. With that being said, this is the Scarlet Lake Tapes. The link to the channel and the videos are in the description as always. And yeah, if you enjoyed, don't forget to like, subscribe, do that funny little notification thing, leave a comment, I have a Twitter, and I better not catch you dying on me. Goodbye!